All right, welcome everyone. This is Octogo's community call for October. My name is Ramiro. I'm one of the maintainers of the Octogo open source project. And with me here today, we have Abdul and Jacob. Hi guys, how are you?
Hello, doing well.
I
Exciting to see you both. Today we have a new format on the community call. We're going to try to do something more conversational, a bit less stuffy. See, you guys let us know if you like it. If you do, subscribe to our channel, leave comments. You can find us also on Twitter, all the places. So, Jacob, Abdul, why don't you introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about you for those who might be new to our call.
Cool. I'll go first. So I'm Abdul, developer advocate at Octogo. I manage the developer community, the content, the samples, making sure everyone gets to use Octogo, gets to know the latest features. How do we use them? There's a lot of content on the blog, and I'm currently working on the Fast API series. I think you should check it out. In the series, I talk about a few features we have, how do you use them, why should you use them. And I expect you at the end of this community call to check the series, give us your thoughts and comments, and you should also try out too. Let us know what you love best. And so now, Jacob is going to introduce himself.
Yeah. So my name's Jacob. I'm a developer at Octogo. I work on mostly the backend components and some of the projects that we rely on. I work on those. Occasional blog post and attendee here. And if you're in our Slack channel on slack.kates.io and /Octogo or #Octogo, I'm in there usually answering any questions you have. So yeah.
So yeah, we don't mention that a lot, but if you have any questions, you want to chat, the team, the community, everyone is there. So just go to slack.kates.io and the channel is Octogo. And if you go there, it's free, start your account, and we'll be there ready to answer any question you have, chat about dev environments, Kubernetes, Fast API, all the things. So one of the coolest things we've been doing lately is Abdul's been working very hard in creating all these new video series. Video is a great way to learn. Is something that is becoming more and more popular in the dev world. So he's been working a lot on a tutorial on Fast API. So Abdul, why don't you share a little bit more of kind of what motivated you to start building this, and why do you think it's important, and what can our viewers expect as they go through this series of videos that you're preparing for everyone?
Yes, cool, thanks. So I'm a Python fanboy and I like Fast API. And when building, although Fast API allows us to give us how to reload and everything, it's very important to know how these applications work, not only locally but production. And here at Octogo, the main thing we do is provide remote development environments for our users and for everyone. And so I was like, okay, cool. If I can build an application, with Fast API and also show people how to use remote dev environments, which I think is the latest hot thing in town, it would be cool. So, we have a lot of content, written content, which is blog posts on how to do this already. But I was like, okay, how about we demonstrate this? It's easier to show people how to use, how does debugging work? How does the remote development environment work? And how do we really power, the automatic synchronization? So like, yes, how about a series? And we tried the first video, the intro, we had a lot of positive responses, and so now we're moving. The third video was uploaded, just yesterday, so you should check it out. I think you should watch it. Everyone in general. So irrespective, although we're using Fast API, the same methods of operation in Octogo is the same. Irrespective of your languages, as long as you have the Docker Compose manifest, we automatically, put everything in place. I think if you have watched the series, you would have learned a lot. So I think you're missing out if you haven't. So you should check the series. And we have a link on your screen. So you should check it. And if you want a series on, a framework or language of your choice, you could also let me know in the comments, in our Slack community, and I'll be very happy, to work on more content as long as everyone is happy.
Yeah, Abdul is very he's available, he's around, he's on Twitter, he's on the Slack channel. So if you have any questions, like we're looking to see what other content to create. That Fast API series is really
Yes.
cool. It's kind of like do things like deploy your first service, you develop it in Octogo, create a preview environment for it. I think that's coming in the next index video. So I might be giving something away. But what we're looking
Yes.
for with this video is to kind of like learn what other things can we do. And Abdul likes Fast API. What else is out there that you like? And let us know. Abdul, what you mentioned, like you're like a Python fanboy. What do you like about Python? Why Python and Fast API instead of, like, I don't know, Django or other, Express? What do you like about Fast API and Python?
Cool. Python is like it's one of the coolest languages. I'm sure you all are going to agree with me that if you've written Python, it's very smooth, it's easy. It's just like writing English, and as opposed to Django and Express, Fast API is very simple to write. It's something I like. You could easily spin up your application in just minutes instead of having to do these configurations with just the Fast API and a couple of dependencies. You're good and you're up and going. And we all know JavaScript is a very complex language. And of course, I've written Express before. And interestingly, both Django and Express work. In Octogo, we have content on those two. But the Fast API community is very like supportive. It's like Octogo, we have people talking about what we build, and like, okay, so we want to talk about how to use Octogo. How about we use a service that is relatively easy to blend in and use? Okay, cool. So we don't want to start something complex. Fast API is easy. It's one of like the most in-demand new framework. People are always going to, when we look at the blog too, we have Fast API content. Okay, yeah, I like to Fast API content. We like to do more on this. So it's a good choice, and that's why. So since Python and Fast API is easy, I mean, we could just do that. And obviously, if you have other language or framework you think is much easier, and you would like to see how to use it on in Octogo again, like I said, Slack community, you can always reach out on Twitter and on Slack. I'm going to work towards presenting that for you too.
Yeah, it's really funny because Jacob and I used to work together before Octogo, and a lot of the work we did a while ago was on Python. And I kind of thought that Python was gone, like it was kind of like more like a legacy. And then Fast API came, and it felt like it came out of nowhere. And I was looking at earlier this year, JetBrains put out a survey, and Python actually its usage is growing, which is really cool and makes me feel very confused about it. But I don't know, Jacob, what do you think about it? I know we discussed Python a lot in the past.
Yeah, I feel like it's had multiple lifetimes already, right? There was the early adopters of Python, early versions of 2, I think around 2.4. There's a few big changes, not as big as the change from 2 to 3, but there's the early version. I didn't use anything version 1. I don't know how all that worked out, but early on in version 2, I was there, and it was like new and hip and toy, and people, there's lots. It seemed like the discussion was on why would you use it, or trying to understand it, or that sort of thing. And then it changed when it got, I think, a big adoption was around the scientific community and data, pandas, all of the different data types with the extra libraries, and it got a popularity with, I think, probably maybe a non-traditional group of programmers, more scientists, and not wanting to talk about the intricacies of why this language is better, and why the style is this way, and why it's delimited this way, and all that. That didn't happen anymore. It was just about completing a job, completing a task, which is super good to validate, right? Like it's same thing with Octogo. People may use it because it's a toy, and that's fun. It's cool to talk about, but we also want people to use it to complete a job, to feel as though Not because it's Kubernetes or not because like all those things are great, but they want to use it because it helps them do something they couldn't have done as easy or at all without it, right? And so I think that happened with the scientific community. And then after that, it gains popularity, it gets some more emphasis. I think they got past all the 3.0 hurdles, and another resurgence among the, I'll say in air quotes, right, the typical developer community from before, from early 2 days. So it's multiple just things just keep pushing it along, and I think it kind of proves that as long as you keep trying, if you've got the core fit, as long as you keep trying, the 3.0, people said it would die with 3.0 and all these different things. As long as you keep trying it, it's cool. And it's an amazing open source, developed openly and free, and it's amazing work that everyone has done there. So I don't use it a lot anymore, but it's really cool. And I feel like it's a different language than when I used it 5 years ago, right? Like it's how you do all these things and the tooling, especially developer tooling around it, which is something that we focus on at Octogo, is developer tooling. All the developer tooling is just a lot different. I can't weigh in on if it's better or not. It frustrates me because it's new and I have to relearn it. It's not like it used to be, right? But maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But yeah, it's very interesting.
It's hard. Like you're right. It's a whole new language. Like I think that the whole switch from 2 to 3 really like make things complicated for a while. I remember there was like a lot of community infighting. But I like what you said, Jacob, of like it gets the job done, it's easy to use. That is a topic that when I talk to people, I talk a lot about it, because it's very interesting how the profile of the developer community has changed so much over the past 5-7 years in a good way, where like you mentioned, like people now in other professions are also developers, which means that a lot of the tools and the languages, like whatever is easier wins, or whatever is like more usable is starting to win. Like we saw that with, I think Rails was one of the first big movements where usability and UX was a big thing. And I think Python was always been very famous for this fast. I write code, I see the changes. I write like a whole REPL cycle. It's really cool. And that is some of the things that we're trying to do with Octogo for everyone, not just for Python developers, for everyone building microservices. But it's something really interesting that's happening in our industry that I'm a huge fan of. I think as we have a more diverse workforce, investing in all these things is something that you'll see more and more companies doing. We're doing it, and not to get ahead of ourselves, but we saw that at KubeCon, at DevX Day, was one of the big topics. We'll talk about that in a second. Before that, I think it'll be a good time to talk a bit about what's coming on the next release of Octogo CLI. If you've noticed, if you go to a repo, and if you haven't, please go and start. That's always good. It's a good way to signal to the community that you care, that you like. If you don't like it, let us know. If you notice, we haven't made a release in close to a month, and that's because we have a lot of cool things coming in the next release that we're gonna package all at once, because they're kind of interconnected. But I think Jacob's going to share some of the good, cool things that are coming. And if you go today to Octogo, clone the repo, and build the binary, you can try them today. If not, wait a couple of days, and you can get the next official release, which should come probably, I don't want to say tomorrow, but maybe.
Maybe. No promises. No, it's impending. It's coming soon.
It's impending
for some definition of soon.
That's true.
Absolutely. So in general, there's been a big effort, and the reason for maybe a little bit longer delay, and we're going to have a bigger release next time, is for Octogo CLI to work a little bit better, whether or not you're using a vanilla Kubernetes cluster with none of the Octogo runs. You can have just the CLI, or you can run on cloud.octogo.com and use our multi-tenant cluster, or you can launch all these Octogo services on your cluster. But we wanted the CLI, the open source component that we have, to work better regardless of which environment you're working, which Kubernetes cluster you're working with. And one of the biggest changes there in that, to hit that goal, is Octogo context. And effectively, Octogo context greater delineates when you're using the Octedo CLI, which context you're working on. It's not necessarily a Kubernetes context. There is Kubernetes behind it, but we want, not all developers are interested in knowing so much about Kubernetes or fully understand these Kubernetes concepts. So we have to very carefully pick and choose what words we use and the context that we set in. And the CLI is going to reflect more of that with the Octedo context command, where you can drop in and you're using an Octedo context that happens to be on a specific cluster, and you're using that. And then if you switch over and you're using kubectl or kubectl, you have that context as well. And those are two distinctly different things. I think if you're a long time CLI user, I think just CLI user, I think it'll be a great change for you and be somewhat of a natural fit. If you've been using cloud or something like that, or various clusters, maybe a little bit of a learning curve. I don't think it's too big, but it's just a little bit differently. So given that, we're going to appreciate lots of feedback on how that is and how you like it. I've been using it for quite a while, at least a week and a half. I've been doing all sorts of Octedo things with the new, it's available off master, and you can always build your own. And it's been great. Absolutely. So yeah, and more changes like that. And Ramiro, what are some of the other changes that are going to make the CLI work better with the clusters? There's a couple other, or at least one other.
Yeah, there's another one that it's been a community ask for a while, which is, we have this Octedo build command. And when we build Octedo build, the idea is to help you move your container build to your cluster where you have a service running. And that requires BuildKit. What we've seen is that for a lot of of our community, running BuildKit on a cluster is kind of not a trivial thing to do. So on the next release of Octedo, you're going to have this option when you do Octedo build, where you're going to be able to tell Octedo build whether to use your local Docker daemon or BuildKit or local BuildKit or a remote BuildKit, which Octedo offers as part of this of cloud.octedo.com, or on Octedo Enterprise, you have this BuildKit service that's running on your cluster. But even if you don't have that, you can still do Octedo build, use all the other commands like Octedo up -- build, but then they will fall back to your local Docker instance, which is, for some people who don't want their builds to kind of leave your machine, or because of the speed, or maybe you have more memory than whatever you have available on your cluster. I think it's an easy way to start moving things to your cluster without having to do kind of all or nothing. Octedo helps you move your dev environment, and we do believe, I think it's faster to build images on a remote cluster. You have you're closer to the internet and all those things. But for some configurations, if you have a limited cluster, if you're sharing with a lot of people, maybe doing a remote build is not feasible. So we're gonna do that instead. So check it out. It'll be, same thing as context is of master, so you can get it right away, build your own binary, try it out, and if not, it will be available on next release. And as part of that, we're also going to be writing some tutorials on going to help you optimize BuildKit. That is something that we've seen that people struggle a lot with, optimizing their Docker builds to make take advantage of all the cool new things that BuildKit brings in. They're not even that new, but they're not that well known. So we'll check out our blog, and we'll be publishing some content on this soon. Honestly, and I think Jacob's has been the one that's been more involved with BuildKit. It's a really cool project. It enables a lot of very powerful things around caching, around security that the default Docker build doesn't give you. So it's something I definitely recommend people check out. It's really fun. They have a very large community, but there's only 1 or 2 maintainers. So they're really doing a lot of hard work themselves. But it's something worth checking out. It's really cool. Jacob's been involved there. I think he already sent a couple of bug fixes on things that we found. That was, Octedo giving back. We use BuildKit. Whenever we find something that we can fix, we send the fix back, and that's the way open source kind of fits on itself. So check it out. It's really cool. In the next few days, you're gonna be able to do Octedo build and use your local container. And please, this is something where we we're trying to build Octeto in the open. So if you have any issues, if you have any ideas or comments, like GitHub, check it out. Go to GitHub, Octeto. Issues there, file an issue, and that is a great way to start a conversation on new things we should build. We have a lot of other things coming, and if you look at our issues, you might get a sense of what they are. But we'll be sharing those in our next community call. Anything else, Jacob, Abdul, that you think we should mention about the upcoming release? Anything cool you've seen there?
Yes, I think you both have said like the most important thing. I especially like the context. It saves confusion and lets people know, okay, yes, you should not use this cluster, you should use this one, and reduces accidental builds and damages. I think again, and expects this feature, and we are always like willing and we are always like eager to hear or error.
Yeah, and not pushing
cool.
to a master.
Like we said, there's no promises, but exactly. So yes, I think when you try this feature, we are going to try before the release. It would be nice if you give us your experience in the Slack community, or open an issue and we can look into it. And you feel there's anything we should have added, Ramiro said, you create an issue. So your wish is our command. We want to make sure you are comfortable with the CLI and the product are large. So I think we'll be speaking about releases and everything. And so the both of you at KubeCon, just like 2 weeks ago, how's the experience at KubeCon? I did enjoy the both of you talk. I think it's cool. I think everyone thinks it's cool.
I think so. I think Jacob's talk was the best talk I saw at KubeCon. It's really cool because we have 3 people here with 3 different I think levels of experience. I've been lucky that I've been to like 5 or 6 KubeCons at this. I think I didn't go to the first one, but I've been to every other KubeCon in the US after that. I think it was like Jacob's was your first KubeCon, maybe?
This is my first KubeCon, and it was my first at least live conference that I've been to since AWS reInvent like 3 or 4 years ago, which reInvent is like in another tier of conferences and sales, and it was Vegas pre-pandemic. So it was lots of fun, very interesting, very different than what I'd done before, but it was great. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, for me it was the first in-person conference since KubeCon 2019. Funny, KubeCon 2019 was in San Diego, and Pablo, one of the maintainers, he was in Spain, flew to San Diego kind of like for the conference. That was the last time we were like in an in-person conference, the 2 of us, early days of Octeto, just trying to get feedback from people, talking to like our peers. Back then, we gave a talk on serverless days on how to use Octeto with OpenFaaS, which someone funny just wrote a blog post on that the other day on Medium. So it's always a treat to find people writing about Octeto in other publications. Yeah. But yeah, it was my first in a while too, and I like it. I was very tired at the end of the conference. Like by Friday, when I flew back home, I probably slept like a full day. I forgot how draining in-person conferences can be, but it was fun. I met a lot of like people I've been following online for a while, so that was fun. But I would like to get both of you's opinion on this. I think the most interesting thing for me, given what we work on day to day at Octeto, was DevX Day. Like DevX Day is the first time they do. So for those of you who have not been to KubeCon, what they do at KubeCon is you have the general conference for 3 days, typically Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then for the first day, or they do what they call, confusingly enough, day 0 events, which are one-day events dedicated to the specific topic. GitOps, security, service mesh, application deployment. But this year, New Relic sponsored the first ever Developer Experience Day. And it was very interesting to see all these people, all these companies interested in discussing not the operational aspect of Kubernetes, but actually how do we make developers use Kubernetes in a more easy and fun way. And that is a topic that is very close to our heart. That is part of why we started Octedo, both the open source project and the company. So that was really cool. And what's even cooler is that we submitted 2 talks, and both talks got accepted. They will be online, I think, this weekend. Jacob gave a talk on preview environments. That was really good. Got like super high ratings. I really liked it. And I gave a talk on kind of like the reason behind Octedo Up. The idea that you should be able to move. We should be moving our development environments from living on our local machines to living on a full cluster. And we got a bit into like the whys behind and as an industry, what we're seeing. So it was fun to be able to talk about those things. As always, the questions you get after is really the most interesting part. I wish those could be recorded, but we got into like a couple of really fun conversations with maintainers from the Knative project, from our friends at Tilt and Garden, and a few other things. But Jacob, what was your experience it was also your first time giving a talk?
Yeah.
So it was a lot of firsts, and you did an amazing job. But what was your takeaway?
I think they did a great job at doing a conference. First back to live conference. I think they did a great job. There were obviously hiccups around having lots of virtual attendees and trying to do live talks and virtual talks. There was gotten to this weird position of there was all these great talks, but I wanted to tend to bias towards wanting to see the live talks because they'll be there, and that live experience is something I haven't been craving and haven't had. But then you get to go back and watch all the videos, so that'll be great. So I think they did well. I think they're going to continue to do it that way, and I think they'll get better. And I just see only upside to that. Like you said, having a DevX days or a dedicated focus on developer experience. I don't know if it's better to have a track or a 0-day thing. Or day zero, not 0 day. That's probably something different. But day zero, day zero, dedicated pre-conference. I think that was great. They had all sorts of very interesting things. I think a lot of times, if any of those speak to you, those are almost probably just as good or better than the full conference. They're definitely different. Definitely have a focus. I think eBPF was there. Whole co-located event on that. And having the developer experience one was just interesting because it's one of those things like, what if you're going to submit? What does that mean? Why would you have it? What would you talk about at a KubeCon based event on developer experience? Why does it get involved? I think we sort of know that, but it's our business to know, right? And other people know about it because they purchase and use Octedo. Whether it's the free or the open source, or they purchase enterprise, what have you. So other people get it, but it's, if you think back up in general, like if you didn't know about it, why would that be important? And there were a lot of things that came up. We talked about the preview environments and just how you do that. I think a lot of it was around that applications seem to be getting more and more complicated. People are doing more and more things with their applications as they grow in the cloud. Just having the option of deploying it in the cloud, using the cloud, means that you can change the complexity of your infrastructure so much more. And the cloud's been around for a long time, but really, it's one of those things that just keeps growing and growing. And AWS announces like 20 things every so often, like all these new tools, and that just is going to add complexity on how your application is deployed, right? And that's going to trickle down to development, right? It's just going to happen. It doesn't matter if you're microservices or monolith or all these other architectures we could talk about. If you're using more and more cloud features, it just gets more complicated. And so when that happens is the developers start to have to learn all that and do all that. And you have to learn how to write contention-free thread code, Go routines. You need async and wait in Python. You need to know how to use the new versions of all that. And you have to know how it may be deployed or be aware of that. That's a big leap. That's very hard, especially if you get some specialists in, right, that are just really focused on whatever technology, right? And so seemed there were like tons of groups, even not at DevX Days, that were talking about how to bridge that gap between how things are deployed. And it was super cool. I think there was 3 or 4 talks about companies saying, okay, we adopted Kubernetes. Now that really helps us with production and everything. And that was good and a good win there. But then slowly over time, because we adopted all these Kubernetes things, that affected development, and not always in a positive way, right? And so that became a hurdle they had to overcome. It was worth it to them collectively because of how production ran and everything. And then, but it from a development focus gave a step back, and there were people that, you know, first you run Minikube or whatever locally, then your laptop's on fire. So then you decide to move something onto the cloud. Well, then like, how can you afford all these clusters? And like, it was a very common story. And it was great to see that from people that had developed things like Octeto in-house, right? Which is great. But, you know, they were kind of ahead of the game on that, right? And so I think more and more people are going to hit those issues just as all these things grow. So it was really cool to see. Like, that's the idea, right? And we talk about that and we read about it in blog posts, but it's another thing to see it in person and people talk about it. That's really fun and really cool. So the other big one was just eBPF was very
everywhere, right?
Everywhere. There's companies that are basing things. Pixie with New Relic, who sponsored the DevX Days, was using that for some of their things, and it was something I had used for some TCP retransmit bug on a product I worked on long ago, and it was one of these things when it was newer for Linux, and I forget their name, but anyways, I used it and used some tools and stuff, and it was great. But then there's all this other stuff that's been built on top of it. People have all these flame graph profiling, HTTP profiling, all this stuff they've built into using the eBPF technology and just building blocks on top of. That was really cool to see too. That was the two that surprised me. Wow, eBPF! I thought that it was kind of like a crude tool when I first used it, very crude and hard to get into. And now all these layers have been built on top of it. And it's a lot more usable and like good, lots of just end products that are based on it. And all of those, it seemed like all those products that were doing it were giving back. So that was awesome. So
that was pretty cool.
It's a wheel that just keeps going. eBPF, people build something on top of it, so then it becomes cool, and then they build back into eBPF. And so that was really awesome to see. And I think the same thing with developer experience. I think we'll get there too. We're already there a little bit, but more and more so people giving back to Octeto and developer experience type things. Just could cause the same thing, right? It'd be very cool to see.
I think so. Yeah, I think like as we you mentioned that, right? As we see more and more companies and people go from this journey of like, oh, Minikube, too hard, remote cluster per developer, too expensive. What do we do next? And people are like looking into like multi-tenant clusters. Or we saw that talk. I saw that talk on virtual clusters, the virtual cluster project by the people at Loft, Lucas and Rich and everybody there. And we're all solving these problems. And it's really cool to see all this new trend, what Jacob was saying, of companies who built these really cool tools. And Ambassador did it with telepresence. And then they donated back to the CNCF or to the community, where they just get a whole different like life, right? Like a lot more people use eBPF now because Sysdig and Isoval and all these companies are giving it marketing, but also like making it easier. So that's a trend that I think I agree is going to happen with DevX, because we all, as you use Kubernetes, DevX becomes kind of like the next thing you have to solve. So I think it's going to be cool things. We're trying to push some of these things as we talk to other companies who are building dev experience as well as us. We had a really cool talk about, hey, it doesn't make sense for like a standard to be created around dev environments, around the definition of how you synchronize code. There's all these really cool things we could do together. So we'll see. And the other thing that I really like about KubeCon was how many people have issues with containers and CVEs and security vulnerabilities. For us internally, we ship this product called Octeto Enterprise, and we have a bunch of dependencies. And one of the challenges we have in an engineering team is how do you keep up with all these CVEs that are coming up? People find vulnerabilities, and I thought it was only us. And then we discovered, well, at KubeCon, there were like tracks of talks on how to do this, everything from detection to how do you manage it. There was this talk on like dealing with burnout because of like security vulnerabilities and warnings, and how do teams manage to stay sane. So it's really, for me, like besides what you learn, which is very important, it's really cool when you kind of realize, hey, there's a community where you all have the same problems and we're all trying to solve them. And they've been solved in a way that others can piggyback on those solutions, like all the stuff that Artifact Hub did. It's great because now we're packaging and advertising our dependencies. It also made the vulnerabilities more evident. But now there's other companies and products and open source projects helping you with that and helping you do things like auto-patch them, like qualify them better. It's a really interesting world. And now the Sigstore team now have this company, ChainGuard, which was kind of one of the bosses at KubeCon. So it's another space that is really cool. And, it's all about, I think, as we all, now that we know how to deploy clusters, now it's like, okay, how do we keep them running? How do we keep them secure? And how do we get our developers there? So Abdul, since you weren't there, and hopefully next time you'll be able to attend, what was your impression kind of from the outside? Like, what are you looking forward to, like, for the next KubeCon? What do you think would be cool to see?
I think, although we have talks and all of this, I don't know. I do like when, at conferences we have like code labs and more of these demos. It was cool that we had these talks focusing on what the community is facing, challenges, everybody's pitching. We do this, we do that. This is cool. You should try this and try that. But, outside these talks, we should have like more of code labs, like demonstrations. Okay, yes, we use preview environments. Of course, there's a lot of theory. You could read the docs if you like. How about we have like practical experience, demonstrates, when you run into issues, you're able to like, okay, yes, this is how you do it, this is how you mitigate these issues. Overall, I think the conference is cool. Hopefully the next one I get to like attend in person. It looks like a very cool conference. The pandemic is dying down, so there are like lots of possibilities. But then I would like if we have like code labs, these sessions where people get to like share, practically what they're doing, not just slides. With theory, we should have like more practice. At Octogo, we like to be practical. That's why we have both, video content and our blog content. The blog is the theory and the videos are the practical. So yes, code labs are something I look forward to, the next KubeCon.
Yeah, the next KubeCon is going to be in Valencia in Spain. So people are very excited about it, especially because a lot of people couldn't come to this one because the US still has some restrictions on travel. So I think the one in Valencia is going to be really cool, and hopefully we'll be able to have some people from Octogo there. We'll see. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Knock on wood is some COVID thing. It's under control, and that might make it easy for everyone to travel.
Yeah, I think, by then we should have more cool features we want to talk about. There's data in Kubernetes, a lot of exciting things, we'd like to keep you in suspense. So, for the next one, and you can always find out in community calls what feature we're building, what exciting thing we're working on. So yes, I think it's exciting to think of these conferences ahead. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. And the request, the CFP, which is the request for talks for KubeCon EU, is already opened. It opened, I think, yesterday or the day before yesterday. So if anyone in the community sent a talk, if we can help, Jacob and I, Abdul, are happy to help brainstorm. If anybody's interested in doing a kind of use case of how you use Octogo's tools or around like the dev experience of moving your team to the cloud, that'd be a really cool talk to do. We're happy to help to do it together. It's always fun to build things with the community. So reach out. And also, it's not just KubeCon. There are a lot of Kubernetes community days all year that I highly recommend you check out. There's one happening next month in Guatemala that Sergio from Yalo is organizing. You can still send your talk to that. And if you go to the CNCF site, there's a bunch of almost every month. So check them out. every country. If there's none in your region, maybe it's a good opportunity for you to organize one. Well, check them out. It's the cloud native community is really helpful. It's really friendly. There are other resources, so I highly recommend everyone to get involved, whether it's organizing, submitting talks, joining the talks, participating. It's a lot of cool things to do. It's great from a professional development perspective. It's great from a personal marketing perspective, and it's great from a friendship perspective. I've met a lot of really cool people in the industry that we've become friends through events and doing things together. And from my experience from other communities, the cloud native Kubernetes community is one of the warmest and most helpful. But that is my experience. Your mileage may vary. I don't know. Jacob might have different opinions on this.
Cool.
No, everyone's tries to be super helpful. Everyone's busy, but everyone's super helpful.
It's too many projects.
Too many projects, a lot to go on. But yeah, everyone's been great. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is great, and it was a lot of fun. So if any of you are at the next KubeCon, let us know. We might bring you some swag. We didn't do any swag for this one, but we're getting our swag game on. There might be some stuff for next one. We had this first run of coffee mugs for people who sent a PR last year. This year, we have some surprises. You'll see soon, but you're still on time. If you send a PR issues part of the community, you might qualify for an extremely limited edition Octogo swag. But anyway, that's what we were thinking about for today. So Jacob and Abdul, thanks so much for joining. It's a fun conversation. I hope it's useful for you, for the community. And just kind of like final reminders is Abdul is working on a lot of video content. So do subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get notified when we publish new things. We're going to publish a community call there, the Fast API video series, and then we have other videos on how to do things with Octogo, how to use it, how to build your application, things like that. Also, check out our blog post, our blog, octogo.com/blog. And if any of you is interested in writing for our blog on any topic around dev experience, Kubernetes, or Octogo, we have a tech writer program. So go to our website, check it out. One of our goals with this program is to have a lot more voices in our blog sharing their experience, going back to the topic of diversity and how our profession is changing. We want our blog to represent that and not be just like members of the team. So check it out. There are some paid opportunities there. So if you go to octogo.com/tech-writer, you'll see it. And finally, as always, you could help us a lot by just going to github.com/octogo/octogo, start our repo, open issues, leave us comments. Everything helps. It's a community, and the more people who are involved, the better everything gets. And yeah, that's everything. Thank you so much for joining us. Abdul, Jacob, once again, thank you so much for your time, for being here with me. And hopefully I'll see you next month.
Cool.
Bye.
Right.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. All right.